welcome to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. Happy 4th of July weekend, everybody. I'm Juliet the Daughter.
That must make me Kevin the Dad. And Juliet, what did you pick for us this time?
Well, I knew that our next episode was going to be coming out on 4th of July weekend, so I decided let's talk about the only musical my dad has on CD, because I'm the theater person in this family. Dad is more picky-choosy when it comes to musicals that he likes. So today, we're talking about probably his favorite musical of all time, 1776. And before we go any further, some of you are like, why aren't you reviewing Hamilton? That dropped on Disney+. Okay, one, we don't have Disney Plus because that costs money. And two, Dad does have Hamilton, but it's on his iPod. We have to get through the CDs first before we get to the stuff that's strictly on his iPod. So maybe we'll do Hamilton in the future. Who knows? But we decided to do this one. So Dad, take it away.
Yep, a Broadway musical. Quiet you. Okay, it premiered in 1969 and ran for 1,217 performances.
Pretty decent. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess good. I did the math. 8 shows a week, 50 weeks, that's 400 performances a year. So a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
But 1,217 performances, falling 559 short for my liking. All of you out there are doing the math, I'm sure. Okay, it won 3 Tonys.
Yep.
One for Best Musical. Take that here, you bunch of hippies gallivanting around stage.
And Promises beat that too.
Yep.
And so...
Ron Holgate won for Featured Actor in a Musical as Richard Henry Lee.
Yep.
And Peter Hunt won for Direction.
And I firmly believe that if William Daniels had been nominated for Best Actor in a Musical, Jerry Orbach would not have won the Tony for Promises. No contest. Sorry, Jerry Orbach, I love you, but that's the truth. Rest in peace.
Yeah, well, apparently he was nominated as a feature actor.
Yeah.
But he felt that he was more of a lead actor, so he pulled his name from consideration.
And here's what's also weird. Normally, if you have 2 actors nominated in the same category, because I remember this happened one year with An American in Paris, where it was Max von Essen nominated for Best Featured Actor and somebody else. And normally when that happens is if you have 2 people from the same musical in one category together, the Tony voters don't give it to them because they don't want to split the vote, so they give it to somebody else.
Nah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting factoid for
This
you.
is your Tony politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was revived in 1997 with Brent Spiner, yes, Lieutenant
Commander Data,
as John Adams. And supposedly it was supposed to be revived next year. I did some research.
Yes.
And from what I saw for the listing was an all-female cast.
Yep.
Supposed to be done at the American Repertory Theater in Cambridge this summer, but obviously that's not going to happen.
It was going to be...
So they're probably pushing back everything.
It was going to be women. It was going to be a few non-binary actors in there as well, a few genderqueer actors. It was a really diverse cast, and I remember looking at it and thinking, oh my God, this could be great, because the only other 2 things that I've seen done with 1776 since the revival were the production at Encores, where with Encores you basically have 1 week to put together a musical, and they set that in modern day, like Abigail Adams had like Massachusetts farming clothes on, and Martha Jefferson was played by a black woman, and so there's that, but also every year at Feinstein's 54 Below, which is kind of like this cabaret dinner theater in New York, they do a concert production of it, and that one can have a diverse cast too. Like I remember Kyle Scatcliffe from Les Mis, who's also a black actor. He played John Adams that year, and he sounded really good too. So you could do a whole lot with this musical.
Now, do you ever think they do a production of Hamilton with
No.
Eminem as Hamilton, our remaining Beastie Boys as Washington and Lafayette?
You're triggering the theater fans so fast. Oh man, Lin-Manuel Miranda, I'm so sorry. All right, let's keep going.
I'm just asking.
No, because it's supposed to be reflective of America as it is right now, and it's supposed to talk about the struggles that are still going on in this country. Anyway, that's someone already probably has a video out about that who could talk about it more eloquently than I can. Anyway, let's keep going.
Okay. Words and Music by Sherman Edwards, who had started off as a brill building writer in the 50s and 60s, writing just the music for pop songs such as Wonderful Wonderful for Johnny Mathis, Johnny Get Angry for Joni Summers, See You in September for the Tempos, and those losers, the Happenings. But that's another podcast for another time.
We'll probably bring my mom on for that one.
Oh, sparks are going to fly. And Flaming Star for Elvis Presley. Now, Flaming Star was the song that was the last straw for Edwards, as Colonel Tom Parker would force Presley's songwriters to make huge monetary concessions in order to have their songs recorded by the king.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of like all for me and nothing for you.
Yeah.
Now, according to his collaborator Earl Schumann, they were in the middle of writing a song when Edwards said he just couldn't write pop songs anymore. He had his own idea for a show, and he was going to go home to write it. So there. And that was it. He just up and quit. Just up and left.
On that.
Yep. Peter Stone wrote the book, which I learned a book is the non-sung dialogue and storyline.
Yes.
Now, he wrote screenplays for movies such as Charade, and he wrote specifically for Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn, who did wind up playing the leads.
How'd that movie do?
Pretty well.
Nice.
Yeah, it keeps you guessing right up to the very end.
Cool.
Father Goose, again with Cary Grant. Then he did some playwriting and adapting in the late 60s and early 70s. And he wrote for TV and then went back to Broadway in 1980. He wrote the book for Woman of the Year starring Lauren Bacall.
Oh.
My One and Only starring Tommy Tune and Twiggy.
Ah.
Say that 10 times fast.
Tommy Tune Twiggy, Tommy Tune Twiggy.
It ain't want to go. And The Will Rogers Follies, which won a Tony for Best Musical in 1991. His last work was revising the book for Annie Get Your Gun in 1999.
Oh, was that the one with, that might have been the revival with Bernadette Peters. And I remember when she left, Reba McEntire came in to play Annie.
That was the one, yep.
Yeah.
Now, he was one short of an EGOT, having won an Emmy, an Oscar, and a Tony.
Ooh.
No Grammy for...
Well, yeah, you can't win a Grammy, but that's the acting triple... Well, if you're an actor, winning those three is called the Triple Crown, because those are the big three acting awards that you can win.
Okay. Now, the principal's on the cast album as opposed to the soundtrack.
Yes, it's a cast
Which
album.
I want to know, why is it this thing calling it a soundtrack?
Because when you say the word soundtrack, you're implying a CD where there's just instrumentals. A cast recording is more than just instrumentals. You have people singing, sure, and you have the orchestra, sure, but also sometimes you have bits and pieces of spoken dialogue to help set up the song. I think that's why it's called a cast recording instead of a soundtrack, so there you go. Does that make sense?
I'll allow it.
Yes. And
Okay.
plus it also has the full cast.
Or does it?
Oh, well, we'll talk about that.
Okay, now the principals on the cast album are William Daniels, who was born to play John Adams,
Yep.
Virginia Vestoff as Abigail Adams, and it was supposed to be Howard Da Silva as Ben Franklin, but unfortunately he had a heart attack around the time of recording the album, and apparently someone somewhere didn't want to wait. So Rex Everhart fills in because he was the understudy. And he was also Pat Hingle's understudy in the 1997 revival. But Pat was well enough to do the cast revival album.
For better or for worse. We'll debate that later. But a few
Okay,
factoids.
and the other principal, Ken Howard, yes, the White Shadow as Thomas Jefferson.
And a few factoids. Everybody in my generation knows William Daniels from Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World. For the theater nerds, Howard Da Silva was the original Judd Fry in Oklahoma on Broadway. And you might not think Ken Howard's name is familiar, but if you've ever seen Ed Truck on The Office, you know, the guy who gets killed and Michael Scott has an emotional breakdown? Yep, he played Thomas Jefferson.
And I think he also played some senator in an episode of The West Wing.
He played a Supreme Court nominee who had to reject because he had some interpretations about freedom of speech that they didn't like.
Okay, yeah. And for my generation, since I'm older, he'll always be the White Shadow.
Was that a TV show or a movie?
That was a TV show.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Now, the base...
Wait, you're forgetting somebody. Betty Buckley is Martha Jefferson, who everybody in the theater world knows as Grisabella from Cats.
Okay.
Yep.
I was going to get to her
Oh,
later.
sorry.
But, no, that's okay. That's all right. Well, I left her out because she only sings one
track?
song. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the others are more predominant.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. All right, now trying to boil down the basic plot, it basically portrays the events leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence and John Adams' efforts to get his colleagues to vote and sign the damn thing.
And yeah, vote yes.
Now, historical inaccuracies abound.
Yes.
There are way too many to list here, but that's what Wikipedia is for.
Yep.
Like, I'll give one example is that, Actually, a couple of examples. There were actually 50 delegates, and in the play, you just can't have that many people on stage.
No, it'd be way too much.
And the other thing is, they didn't all sign it on July 4th.
No.
Most of the people ended up signing it around September.
Yeah.
It was kind of like in dribs and drabs.
And also, I'll point out the one historical accuracy that I noticed is when you have Stephen Hopkins talk about, hell yeah, I'm all for independence. I'm like, what are you talking about? Rhode Island declared it first before anybody else on May 4th.
That's why he was for independence.
Yeah, well, yeah, touche. But
Yeah.
he doesn't really mention it. It's like, yeah, we did it first, so you gotta follow me.
Yep. Now, why is this in my CD collection?
Yeah, Dad, why?
As well as the revival.
Yeah, how'd you come across
And
this musical
hopefully
in the first
someday
place?
the movie soundtrack.
Or the 2021 one, if it ever comes out.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It all started back in my St. Margaret's days.
Oh.
Catholic school from
Oh, no.
6th to 8th grade. Ugh.
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 Now, one of those years, my class was taken to the Four Seasons Theater up the street from the school to see the movie. For some reason, I just have no idea. We might have been studying it in history class, I'm assuming.
It's probably because it's a field trip and it's loosely related to history. And hey, kids like songs, right?
Oh, yeah, nothing a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds like better than sitting through a movie musical. Now, we jump ahead 15 years or so later, and I'm just all about the American Revolution. I'm reading, like, every book I can get my hands on, and I've lost track of how many books I've actually read on the subject. I have no idea.
As we're recording this, he's wearing a shirt which is like a cartoon depiction of Washington crossing the Delaware. It's really cool, actually, but too bad you can't see it because this is an audio format. Anyway.
Everyone's in blue.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in the back of my head, I seem to recall some sort of musical about the American Revolution. And I was trying to remember what it was. And back in those days, we didn't have the interwebs. So I had to do digging of some sort. But eventually I came up with, hey, it's 1776. And I found it first on VHS.
Oh, wow.
And it was the pan and scan version, which was annoying because you knew that you were missing chunks of scenes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because you'd see like these weird camera movements just to focus on certain people. And you're like, wait a minute, that guy's over there. Oh, he's gone. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Now, eventually I found the DVD, and we've been watching it every 4th of July for who knows how many years now.
Yeah.
And we watch all 2 hours and 45 minutes of it. And I have gotten to the point now where I know it so well that, like, last night when we were watching it, I was watching all stuff that was going on in the background
Yes,
to see
me
how
too.
people were reacting to stuff. And we found that little thing with Stephen Hopkins swiping Hancock's.
Wrong. Yes.
Yes.
We had never seen that before. Like, I was noticing, like, during some of the meetings where, like, Adams is yelling at them, I'm like, oh, no wonder he's mad at some of these people. They're just sitting there playing cards.
Yep.
Like, I'd never noticed that before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I actually found a hardcover edition of the play at a library sale for $1. And then eventually went all in and got the original Broadway cast album and then the revival. And I've seen it live once at the Ocean State Theater Company, which was in Warwick, and now it's...
Gone.
No, now it's Second Story or the GAM?
The GAM has the building now.
Okay. Now, it was a good production, but they committed a grievous sin where this play is involved, which we will get to a little later.
And I will explain about the contention that led to. Like, can I talk about
Oh yeah, when we get to that, you can just tee off on it.
Okay.
Now the big difference with the original cast album again is Rex Everhart filling in for Howard Da Silva, who does play Ben in the movie version, and like Howard just owns that part.
Perfect.
There's just something about his voice where it's like very, it's very calm in a way, or soothing.
It's soothing, but it's also a little bit hoity-toity because, like, he knows he's the shit.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. What's the matter? Haven't you seen a
Great man before.
And that thing about a farmer, a lawyer, and a sage.
Bong!
A little gouty in the leg. All right, so much for my Howard imitation.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right. Now, the movie soundtrack is not available on CD, but you can find the vinyl if you're willing to pay 3 figures for it.
Oof. Ugh.
Yeah. Now, I'm hoping someone out there somewhere will put it out on CD for the movie's 50th anniversary in 2022.
Oh, they better.
Let's see. Shall we jump right into the
Into the
songs?
CD?
Let's.
Let's do it. All right. First song, Overture, because in musicals you have to talk about the overture. So the tone of this one is, we're going to talk about something as serious as a revolution, but we're going to have fun while we do it. I love the drum and fife arrangement because it's pretty much the only time we hear an old school colonial musical arrangement, in the sense that you could picture some guys with tricorn hats playing this. It also gives me the vibes of a marching band in a 4th of July parade where you can hear them coming up the hill and then they arrive and everybody has fun. As for choosing the Lees of Old Virginia instrumental for the overture, I think it makes sense because normally a show's overture is either a medley of all the songs or something totally original, but that's only if you're Richard Rodgers writing the score for Carousel, or even, sometimes an overture will be something short. But I think choosing this song makes sense because it's the one best suited for the fife and drum arrangement. However, I think if you had never seen the musical before, right, and you were sitting in a theater and hearing this play in the pit before the start of the show, you'd probably think, this is kind of cute, but you wouldn't be too impressed. Then the next number kicks in, and boy, are you jolted awake by a lot of white guys yelling.
Uh-huh. All right. So for me, the overture, like, you got a lot out of it a lot more of it than I did. For me, it's like those snares kick in and they're getting louder and louder and louder. And they make you want to get up and march. And I'm assuming the purpose of an overture is to play the musical themes that will be present throughout the musical, which you just basically confirmed. I'm still a newbie.
It's okay.
I don't know what's going on with this
okay.
Broadway stuff.
But the thing is, you don't want to be inducted into the musical theater fandom.
Oh, okay.
Right, well, do you?
No.
Okay.
Why? What happens?
Your life is never the same.
Oh, I thought it was like everyone gets really picky. Okay, I'm
No
sure
way.
they do.
Yes.
All right. Now, it was funny. I remember when I used to work in receiving on weekends, they had the CD player set up that was kind of on its last legs, whack it a few times to get it to work.
That's good, yeah.
And so I brought this in around 4th of July weekend.
Nice.
And started, the overture kicked in, and people were looking at me wondering, what the hell is this? So I had to explain to them, and it's amazing. A lot of people have never heard of 1776.
Really? Did you get any converts after playing that CD?
I don't know, because people are just like walking back and forth, getting work done whilst I'm at a desk doing paperwork, and, I get to listen to the whole thing.
Singing, "Hearly, verily, really." No.
Not really.
All right, next song.
Sit down, John.
Yeah, sit down. Okay, in my opinion, they should have started off this track with John Adams giving his full opening monologue to the Second Continental Congress instead of starting with the, "By God, I have had this Congress." What?
I have come to the conclusion that 1, useless man is a disgrace, that 2, are a law firm, and that 3 or more are a Congress, and by God, I have had this Congress.
Yep, that's the full beginning. There you go.
Thank you.
So, because in my opinion, you need to have the wind-up before the pitch, and it gives...
Oh, I like that.
Thank you. And it gives William Daniels more time to build and play with it, because boy, does he play with it. And I'm sorry, but when he says... diddle, all I can think of is Frank...
Oh, no.
All I can think of is Frank Reynolds saying, "We gotta write a song about how we do not diddle kids." But listening to this now as an adult, I really appreciate how Sherman Edwards showed that the Founding Fathers were just ordinary dudes and not paragons of virtue, because I read this interview with William Daniels where the first script for 1776 was really kind of stuffy because it was just basically like a laundry list of historical facts. And then when Peter Stone got his hands on the script, he injected it with stuff that you read based on letters, diary entries. And
a lot of the dialogue is real.
And organic. Case in point, this opening number is about how they can't even agree on opening a damn window. So you watch this and you think, how the hell did they even agree about managing to secede from Great Britain? Which we shall see over the course of the show. It's also interesting how in the show we get multiple I Want songs. Now, the I Want song is the song that really gets you to root for the main character, where they list their hopes and dreams in a musical. Like, a good example is Part of Your World in The Little Mermaid, or Somewhere That's Green in Little Shop of Horrors, or hell, even in Beauty and the Beast, Belle says, "I want adventure in the great wide somewhere."
In the biggest ass library in the world.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So this I Want song for John, this I Want song is the I Want song of Congress, and they want 2 things. 1, for John Adams to sit down and shut up, and 2, they just want to cool down because it's 1776 in Philly in summer and they don't have an AC yet. And what I also think is interesting about this version of the song, as opposed to the film, is that you hear some really high harmonies from the men that you don't get in the movie. So that's always fun to hear new stuff, even though this came first. But hey, I grew up with the movie first and heard the CD second.
Well, maybe because they were a few years younger then when they did the play than the movie.
Hit those notes,
They probably. Yeah, so, with Sit Down, John, William Daniels comes in pissed, and he pretty much stays in that gear for most of the show.
Until he gets what he wants.
Yeah. Now, he's trying to make his case for independency, and Congress just wants him to take a few swigs of shut the hell up juice. But he won't. Never, as he says. And my favorite line is hot as hell in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep, but I that's interesting. I'm learning things here about the I Want song.
Yes!
Which makes total sense to me because
Yep.
it's like he wants independence and, he has a dream. And he's going to achieve his dream.
I have a dream about you, America. It's gonna come true, America. Sorry.
I have no idea what that's from. So.
It's Everything's Coming Up Roses from Gypsy.
Everything's coming up roses.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what's her face?
Ethel Merman.
Yeah, okay.
Or Rosalind Russell in the movie. All right.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's who played Mama Rose. I think she might have been dubbed, but I'm not sure.
No, I want to say with your thing about the diddling, that kind of meant something else back
Yes,
then.
it
Like,
did. It
just
did.
like, fooling around, but in a sense of like not getting work done.
Always Sunny has tainted my mind, though.
Like, hey diddle diddle.
Hey diddle diddle, time for a riddle.
The cat and the fiddle.
Cow jumped over the moon, yeah. All right,
But we're still going to do a song.
Yeah, we are. But we do not diddle kids. All right, next song.
But we piddle and we twiddle in the next song.
Yeah, piddle, twiddle, and resolve / till then. All right, now here we have John Adams' first I Want song that he sings to God. And it's not even that he wants Congress to agree that the colonies should declare independence. He just wants them to agree on something, anything. And this song is aged like a fine wine. Today the government still piddles and twiddles, but the difference is that they know what is good and bad.
They do?
Well, some of them do, I believe, secretly. But they just don't act on it because they're not willing to compromise. I think that the reason Congress doesn't act in this musical is because, well, history was being made. No colonies had ever broken off from the mother country before, so they were scared of what would happen and decided to fight about stuff that was easy, like whether or not the members of the Rhode Island militia should agree to wear matching uniforms.
Oh, good God.
Yep. And Piddle, Twiddle, and Resolve is where Sherman Edwards' lyric writing shines, especially the alliteration with foul, fetid, fogging, fuming, filthy, Philadelphia. And a lyric I just heard for the first time because you hear it in the stage show, you don't hear it in the movie, is if you don't want to see he starts it off with saying, if you don't want to see us hanging from some distant British hill, but then he follows it up with, if you don't want the boys of independence lying forever still, like, if you don't want us dead, It's just to hit the point home of, listen, you better do something or we're gonna die. And although John says he'd accept an earthquake or plague, you know that Congress would find a way to fuck that up too somehow. Because look what's going on right now. I'd also have to say that I love this song and how it's done in the movie because Samuel Chase hauls his giant body out the window and starts singing how someone ought to open one, and you just lose your shit laughing. Now, with Till Then, in comes Abigail, and I gotta say, if you knew nothing about history, you might think Abigail was a dead ghost because that's how she sounds when her voice enters. Hell, that's what I thought as a kid before realizing, oh no, it's because she's in Massachusetts while her husband is in Philly, and this is how the show chose to depict their correspondence. And if you watch the John Adams series on HBO, you know how bad shit was for the Adams family in Braintree, especially in the smallpox scene with the razor blades. Sad how they also cut out the best piece of dialogue that they have in the movie, where Abigail goes, "You neglected to tell us how saltpeter is made," and then John gives her this long chemical formula followed by, "It's da-da-da-da-da, of course," and she goes, "Oh, of course." They also give John some cute moments with her, such as Daniels' little chuckle like, "Aw, she's so cute when she's mad," and then his "Done, madam, done."
Because she will kick his ass.
Yeah, in this one, he sounds scared instead of the sigh of defeat he has in the movie, where it's like, "Done, madam, done." But this really shows how their marriage was one of equals, which was really atypical for the time. Even though John didn't remember the ladies, as Abigail asked later on, that's a discussion for another time. I also really...
Oh, I forgot the ladies. Oh.
Yeah. I also really want to read the love letters between John and Abigail because, according to William Daniels, there's some very moving pieces of writing.
I think there is a book out there, Penguin Classics, where it's just all their letters.
I want to read those. Too bad that, but you can really tell that they loved each other very much from just this alone. Their songs really convey their pining. Too bad they didn't have Zoom back then, or hell, even a rotary phone.
That would come 100 years later.
Yeah, I know.
1876.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would ring a bell.
Anyway, for me, this is the, piddle, twiddle, and resolve, or what the hell are these people waiting for, and why won't they listen to me, god damn it?
Yeah.
That's the first part anyway. Mm-hmm. And, what was it? You brought up something I wanted to comment on, and I can't remember.
The lyrics, I brought up, it's the I Want song, how Congress still piddles and twiddles today, but I'm wishing...
Oh, about the plague of locusts and the famine?
Yeah.
He's saying, well, you could have sent us, but no, you sent us Congress, sir. Now, is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just complaining about, I'd rather, walk around with frogs on my head than deal with these nimrods.
Yeah.
So that's that's his I Want song. Like, the first I Want song is just Congress wanting him to sit down and shut up.
But Adam says 2 I Want songs in this show. His second one comes in way later. And I think you know what that one is.
Oh, is anybody there?
Yeah, that's the second I Want song. That's his big one.
Yeah, and like you said, the second part is John and Abigail talking / singing to each other via their letters. Because they were apart at the time. The only, from when I did quick research, the only woman who was really on the scene at that time was John Dickinson's wife. Martha could not come because she was home being sick.
Oh.
Yeah, she was actually. So again, that's not historical accuracy, but makes good action in the play.
Was this before did she die shortly after, or was she just like sick with something and then got better?
Yeah, I think she did, and then had a relapse, and then
and then kicked it. Okay.
Virginia Vestoff has a great voice, and her Abigail is feisty when dealing with John. Like I said, not putting up with his crap.
No, she's like, don't smirk at me, you egotist. Listen to me, damn it.
But like you said, it was definitely a marriage of equals, and damn, they do love each other. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can tell.
If you watch the John Adams miniseries again, there's like there's 2 scenes that come to mind. One is when he sees her walking down the stairs in a dress, and then 2 is the one where I had to shut my eyes because it's when they reunite in France, and they get to it, and I was like, I don't want to see this. I'm going to put the pillow in front of my face.
Well, they'd been apart for a number of years.
No, I know, but like when you're a kid watching this with your parents, it's awkward enough, so I'm like, I'm going to close my eyes.
So that was kind of like your I, Claudius moment.
Oh, yeah. But Claudius was way worse in the sense that was a mother and a son thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway.
What was I? Okay, now speaking of being apart, in the movie they do appear together, but they never touch. Because, he's in Philadelphia, she's in Boston. But in the live production that we saw, they held hands.
Oh.
And you and I was scandalized, I think. I know I was, because that to me was a big no-no.
We'll talk about that when we get to yours, because I'll tell you what I learned about that show. And then I'll tell you my Ocean State stories from that song, too.
Okay.
Yep. I'll wait until that moment specifically.
Okay, that's fine. Right. I am in suspense, and I'm sure the rest of our listeners are now, too.
Okay, but next song, in the meantime, The Lees of Old Virginia. And this song is why we should have the movie soundtrack on CD, because poor Richard Henry Lee cracks on the last note, and we don't have Howard DeSilva as Franklin. It just doesn't have the same buoyant energy. You could tell from the strain on Richard H.'s voice that they were vocally exhausted, even though in the film he redeemed himself. But it makes you wonder, because I'm thinking, okay, the cast recording came out in like 69. Then you have Stephen Sondheim's Company come out like years later in the 70s, where they were in the recording studio until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they let Elaine Stritch come in to record The Ladies Who Lunched the next day. Yeah, I think Company might be the exception to the rule, because I'm sure this show had time constraints in the studio, and they only had so much money they could spare for recording purposes. And so we get that vocal crack on the final take, womp womp. But before that point, you could tell Richard and Franklin are having a ball, and John Adams is sitting there all grumpy like, what is this shit? You could tell that if John Adams knew he was in a musical, he would not have all this singing and dancing. He'd be like the guy in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Stop that! No singing in my castle! But once again, Sherman Edwards has fun finding all the words and adjectives that rhyme with Lee. It also makes me wonder if the family members listed were real people, and we all know about Robert E., but we don't talk about him in this family, no sir, because he was a traitor and we never will.
Plus he came
later, yeah.
After.
No, I know, but still, I just want to make that
consequently.
joke. Yeah, all right.
All right. Now, how many words end in Lee? Let's find out.
Financial.
Lee.
Political.
Lee.
Internal.
Lee.
External.
Lee.
Fraternal.
Lee.
V. All right.
Oh my God. All right, anyway, Ron Holgate is on the cast album and in the movie as Richard Henry Lee because no one else is going to be able to play that guy.
I mean, he won the Tony for God's sake.
Yeah, he deserved the Tony just for this song. Now, critic Walter Kerr commented that there is simply no stopping Mr. Holgate as he explodes with the sheer happiness of having come to exist.
Yep.
And this is easily the funnest song in the musical. And here's a fun fact. You know that fountain that he's about to fall into in the movie?
He was actually about to fall into it?
That is the fountain that's the exact same fountain that they used on the opening credits of Friends.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow!
And it was used for something else, which I wish I could remember what it was. I cannot remember. I know that fountain was famous for a third thing, but
no worries,
I don't know.
All right.
But that fountain we can look on famously.
Famously.
But yeah, it's a fun song. And, I eventually figured out that, yeah, dude cannot be singing the song while he's trying to climb a horse and all that. Yeah, they're just all mouthing the...
Yeah, what they often do is they'll record it and then they'll play it back and you mouth along on set. And that's why I have so many bones to pick with the Les Mis movie. But if you want to know some of the problems with the Les Mis movie and how that was made, there's an excellent video essay by Ethan from Sideways called "Why the Music in the Les Mis movie is worse than you think." And it's very excellent. I highly recommend everyone check it out. I'll probably put the link below in the video. All right.
Well, at least I was spared that.
Yeah. All right. Next
and I
song.
always will be.
Next song, But Mr. Adams, a.k.a. the song that shows that group projects are a horrible idea. And this song does show that John is the guy who tells all the people singing in a musical to shut up because he yells, "Quiet!" when all the men are singing about bustability, even though they're trying to have some fun. I love all the "you buts" that go on as the men push the quill back and forth, and that's some great direction on Peter Hunt's part. And that brings up one point I want to make. When they made the 1776 movie, they brought in the original actors and the original composers and the original book writers because Jack Warner, according to William Daniels, forever regretted the choice he made of casting Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady instead of Julie Andrews. So he wanted to get this right. But there's one point that I want to make about musicals and movies. I think 1776 is one of the rare exceptions for bringing the original creative team and cast for a musical to work on a film succeeds. And what I've noticed is when that fails is when you bring the original director of the stage musical to come and direct the film because they don't know how to work with actors on camera. It failed for Hal Prince, who's a 21-time Tony Award winner, when he directed the movie adaptation of A Little Night Music with Elizabeth Taylor. And it failed for Susan Stroman when she directed the film adaptation of the musical The Producers with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick.
Well, that's interesting because Peter Hunt did the Broadway show and he also did the movie.
Which is why he's the exception to the rule, and he did an excellent job doing it. And that brings my point. They did an excellent job adapting. Now, this song is all about shunting off the work to one person in the group that will actually do the work. And of course, Jefferson calls bullshit on it. And as the men sing, "This man did murder." I also love how John has to admit to all these men that he's burning for Abigail, and they act so shocked because they thought John felt nothing but rage. I loved how when we went to see this show at Ocean State, the guy playing Livingston was all disgusted when he went, "Ugh, who'd have thought it?" Like, you don't want to think about your coworkers getting horny. And yet this song is missing Howard Da Silva, on the CD at least, it's missing Howard Da Silva so badly because he has so much fun with it in the movie. You're a diplomat, oh that word. And this is why we need a recording of the film.
Darn it,
yeah.
Okay, but Mr. Adams is, okay, who's going to write the damn thing? Not John, he's obnoxious and disliked, which he really wasn't during that Second Continental Congress.
Really?
When he was writing his memoirs much later, I think somewhere in the 1820s, he was one who called himself obnoxious and disliked because that's how he saw himself.
Oh.
That's how he thought others saw him.
Oh, but they were like, nah, he's fine.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's there.
Yeah, he's okay.
I still like that comic though by Kate Beaton and Harka Vega where John Adams, he's like, you know what, no one likes me, I'm not gonna care anymore. And they were like, we want Grumpy Adams back, he was the guy who got shit done. And then Franklin goes, yeah, I thought it was cool until you started scoring more chicks than me.
Oh, the one where they're at the mall?
Oh, yes.
And the Nelly song comes on, it's hot in here, and they're like, it's hot as hell in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Somebody ought to open up a window. Anyway, Where were we? Yes, but Mr. Adams, okay. John's obnoxious and disliked. Ben refuses to use the pen in Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
And Richard Sherman from Connecticut doesn't know a participle from a predicate,
Which I had to
even
look
though
up.
he knows those words. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ugh.
Mr. Livingston is expecting the stork in Old New York.
Yep.
Who's left? Who's
Hmm.
left? The guy who says, the
Hey!
tall guy who says, leave me alone.
He's like, I want to go home and see my wife.
Now, in reality, there was a committee of 5, but there
Yes.
was no singing.
No singing.
And basically, everyone on the committee put in their 2 cents worth, but it was Jefferson who shaped the final draft
Yeah.
because they all knew that he was the best writer. And when Adams says that, he has a happy talent for composition, and at being 33 years old, you're a better writer than I am. He really
He
did.
actually said that.
Yeah, and they did do a lot of research, and which is incredible because there was no Google at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So they had to like crack open the books. They got a lot of stuff from
Locke.
yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say English philosophers. Now let's see. Yeah, they drafted it. Jefferson wrote the final draft, and you know about Adams, Franklin, and Jefferson. Oh, you should by
By now, yeah.
now. Now, Sherman was the only person to sign the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution.
Wow.
And Livingston, as minister to France, negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, one of the greatest real estate land deals ever.
Yeah, when Jefferson was like, oh, no big government, no big government. Then he gets the seat and he's like, yep, I can do whatever I want.
Yep, pretty much. Yep, hey, what, double the size of the country for $15 million bucks?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So, now I'm thinking, well, which deal was better, the Louisiana Purchase or buying Manhattan for $26?
Well, we kind of scammed the Native Americans with that deal because they thought they were going to share the land, not sell it. Anyway, all right, next song. Yours.
Mine?
No, yours. Well,
We
All
could
right.
go,
Okay, now here's my story.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, but a little bit of background information first. So, when 1776 came to Rhode Island at Ocean State Theater Company, I realized that I wanted to go see it because I knew somebody in the cast. The guy who played McNair was played by this guy Patrick, who directed 3 of the shows that I did in high school. So when we went, it was myself, my mom, my dad, and my boyfriend at the time. And we went to see the show. And then after the show was over, I came to know 2 other people. One of them was this guy named Joe, who I didn't meet until one day I was attending church with my mom, and he said that he was in Rhode Island on business for work. And we were like, oh, that's nice. So then we did like this group prayer thing where you can pray for whatever you want, and everyone goes, Lord, hear our prayer, because it's a Catholic church. So I decided to pray for my high school production of The Little Mermaid, and then Joe turns and looks at me and he goes, are you going to be using Heelys in that production? And I looked at him, and I was like, oh my God, he's a theater nerd. Because
Or the Heelys.
So Heelys are shoes that came out in the 2000s that have wheels built into them, so you can
Oh,
look like
okay.
you're floating. And in the original Broadway cast of The Little Mermaid, they had that in all the actors, so it could look like they were floating or swimming through the water.
Okay.
And so I was like, how do you know this? And he's like, I'm an actor, that's why I'm in Rhode Island. And we were like, who are you? And he's like, oh, well, recently I was in this production of 1776. And we were like, we saw that show, who are you? And he was like, I played Edward Rutledge. And I immediately felt guilty because my boyfriend and I were in high school at the time. So after Molasses Tyrone, we flipped Rutledge off in the audience. And he didn't see. But anyway, the third person I ended up knowing was the guy who played Josiah Bartlett from New Hampshire, who is now my voice teacher, Fred Sheff.
Really?
And fun fact, he was one of the only people in the musical who didn't need a microphone. And why? Because Fred is a trained opera singer and he can project really well. Now, here's where Fred's story comes in.
Okay.
So, whenever you see the show, John and Abigail never touch each other in all the time that they're on stage or on screen to symbolize the fact that they are physically separated. And again, when we went to see the show at Ocean State, they touched, which does not work. And here's why. Having them not touch increases their yearning for one another, being several hundreds of miles away, and you can feel that yearning from all the way to the back of the theater, and it makes you root for them all the more. If they do touch, you don't get the sense of physical separation. Now, when I asked Fred why the director chose this, he didn't tell me why, but he said this was a big point of contention among all the actors, and apparently it caused the actor playing John Adams to get in a big fight with the director, to the point of a shouting match, and John Adams eventually said, you know what, fine, I'll do it, but it's wrong, I'll do it. Like, you got the sense that this guy was ready to quit over this, possibly. And you really get the yearning in this song with how Adams and Abigail promise how they'll always write to one another, how Adams misses Abigail's smelling of vanilla and spring air, and how when they finally meet again, everything will be all right. Until then, they'll always love each other. And I'm thinking of how hard it must have been for John, because with Franklin as his BFF, I wonder if Franklin ever tried to tempt him with a hooker or two.
I think Franklin knew better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's John and Abby duetting again, and it's similar in theme to Till Then. I mean, you do the yours in the first one. And did you know that vanilla rhymes with pilla?
If you say it the right way, like William Daniels does, I thought that was very clever.
Well, that still makes me roll my eyes after all
these. The
these.
thing is, it doesn't sound as good because I think Brett Spiner does. Do you still smell of vanilla and spring air? And is my favorite lover's pillow still firm and fair? And it's like, no, you gotta make it pillow. That way it at least sort of rhymes. Doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, you know?
Unless they're going for some sort of like Boston accent.
But that people in Boston don't really like. The Boston accent is one of the most badly done in movies. Like, Mom's from Massachusetts and she'll hear it all the time, and it's like, that's not how we actually talk.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go lie down there. You got my pillow?
Yeah, you gonna park your car in Harvard Yard? Oh, brother.
Yeah, then I'm gonna lie down on a pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Anyway.
a Duncan and a Crulla.
Anyway, John and Abigail were married for 54 years.
Aww.
Oh yeah, she went first.
Yeah, I know.
She needed a break. Yeah, but you can just hear the aching in their voices, and it's like they had it bad for each other.
Yeah, they did.
Which you can see when he got home. That yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, shut the blinds. Close the shutters.
Did they have blinds back then?
No.
They probably had shutters.
They did have shutters, yeah.
But they didn't have screen windows.
Nope.
And every time I see that scene, I'm thinking, did the technology exist? Would it have been hard to...
I mean, I know that mosquito nets in Asia existed for a long, long while. So you'd think that those would transfer over to the West at some point.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, plus the thing was, when I was in... when Uncle Michael and I were in Portugal, we stayed at one of my dad's aunts up in the mountains. And they didn't have screens. What they did was they had strands of beads. They would leave these doors open. They have the strands of beads hanging from the windows and doors because the movement of the beads would scare off any flies or bugs for coming in. That motion would just freak them out, which I thought, that is total genius.
Portugal 1, founding fathers in 1776, 0.
Because I'm imagining they had beads back then.
Yeah.
They had like necklaces and whatever. I'm sure they could have like
Strung
made
some stuff
glass
up, yeah.
beads, put them on a string, hang them from the windows. They would have
No
been all
flies.
set.
Yeah.
But then we wouldn't have had
Too many flies. Too many flies.
And it's hot as hell in Philadelphia.
All right, next song. He plays the violin.
Meh.
Another story from Ocean State.
Oh.
Now, when I went to see this at Ocean State, Martha Jefferson was played by Sarah Pothier, who is also
one of the Pothiers.
One of the Pothiers. I'm friends with Lauren, and Sarah is also one of Fred's students. Lauren is as well. Now, Fred told me that when Sarah was practicing this song, she struggled with it, but when he told Sarah, you realize you're the violin, right? And he's playing you. Off she went! And she was so cute performing this song, too. And I think that's what makes this song work. All the actresses playing Martha, whether it be Sarah Pothier, Blythe Danner, or Betty Buckley, are so pretty and soft and innocent, and they're singing about sex with violin euphemisms. But the song ends really cute, basically saying, as long as I can be married to him, I'm happy. Oh, poor Martha. If you only knew about what was going to happen after you died. I always feel bad about you for you hearing this song. We also have a nice little violin instrumental here, and since 1776 is not a dance-heavy show, it's nice to have a little bit of waltzing, because, it's a nice lighthearted moment in a show that's a bit of a breather from the history lesson you're being taught for nearly 3 hours, albeit a fun one, though.
Mm-hmm.
A little dance would never hurt anybody, because that's the rule in musicals. When you can't express yourself through dialogue anymore, you sing, and when you can't express your emotions through song anymore, you dance. That's the line of progression.
Is there anything else after that? Like if you can't express your emotions in dance, then...
The number ends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or you go back to singing, like
All
if
right.
your emotions die down.
Okay, yeah, it's sung by Betty Buckley, who was making her Broadway debut, and by Blythe Danner in the movie.
Yeah.
Why? Who knows?
Who knows? Someone might know out there. If you do know, tell us.
Unless Betty Buckley was doing some other Broadway show at the time.
Maybe, because I know the Cats didn't come out until the 80s, so... Or maybe she was doing something else.
Yeah, it could be. Anyway, it proves that the guy who can play lead guitar, the violin, is gonna get the ladies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like seeing this in the movie because you get to see the dancing, which makes this song tolerable for me. Like when we were watching it yesterday, I'm looking outside. Oh, yeah, the flag's draped over that light. I better go and straighten it out. And you're saying, you want me to pause it? No, you can just let it play through.
Yeah.
Not my most favoritist song on the original cast album or movie soundtrack.
There you go.
But, I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
He's a Bowen boy. He bows, and he bows, and he bows. Oh, yeah.
He knows, yeah, he knows.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
next. Richard Nixon's favorite.
Oh, the flack on this one.
Yeah, Cool, Cool, Considerate Men. Now, the original title of this song is Cool, Cool, Conservative Men, and the actors from the original company who are still alive refer to it by the original title. It's also very shrewd of Sherman Edwards to have the opening notes of the Star Spangled Banner incorporated into the song sung by conservatives. But since this song came out in 1968, Nixon was on the horizon, so it was kind of like reflecting the values of the party who was going to be coming into power. Ever to the right, never to the left, which, oh boy, are we seeing nowadays. And one of my friends pointed this out to me. I think it was Mitch, not Mardi Gras Beads Mitch, the other Mitch.
Evil Mitch. Hi, Evil Mitch.
He's going to hear this now. Shit. Well, no, he doesn't listen to this because he doesn't care.
Until now.
But he made this point. It's interesting how America seems to embrace right ideology before it'll embrace left ideology. And I think Dickinson's line where he says, most men with nothing would rather protect the possibility of being rich than face the reality of being poor is why. And he's still right about that today. I wonder how the cast felt performing the scene, though, since William Daniels said that in the original company, there were only 2 or 3 Republicans that were in the cast, which is rare among Broadway actors. Yeah, I think the amount of Republicans on Broadway is probably those 3 people and Kelsey Grammer. And this is the one time where I think the movie improved on the stage blocking of the original, because in the film, you get this really cool visual of them all getting their horse-drawn carriages, standing up, and thrusting their canes into the air. I guess the equivalent of this today would be standing up through that hole in the roof of a limousine. Yeah, out of all the songs in the album, I don't skip this one because the hosannas are so damn catchy.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely a song about the conservative members who are bent on steering a new country to the right, ever to the right. And I wonder, like you said, people start off more conservative when you were talking about Dickinson's quote about property.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, maybe they're trying to be cautious first before going whole hog to the left.
Yeah.
I mean, because some people will start there and stay there, and some people will start there and think, I wonder what's going on the other side. Let me check that out.
That's kind of how it was for me when I was growing up. And, I saw this post on Twitter. It was like, so what radicalized you, college or joining Greek life? And I was like, college kind of got me exposed to more left ideas than I had growing up. So it was like, I started out more right as a kid, but then when I went to college, I was like, oh, there's all this other stuff out there that I can read and learn more about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out Nixon was buddies with Jack L. Warner, who was at Columbia Pictures, and he asked him to snip this song from the movie, which he did. And Peter Hunt said, how could you do that? And Jack said, with a pair of scissors.
Oh.
Yep. Now, Warner also wanted the negative to be destroyed, but the film editor saved it.
Thank you, film editor.
Yep, kept it safe, and then they put it back in the DVD version. Now, Nixon also asked the cast, hey, can you guys come to the White House and perform it?
Yeah.
Which they did.
They did.
But then Nixon asked them, hey, can you cut out the cool, cool song? And also
What?
cut out, hey, Mama Looks Sharp.
Because of Vietnam?
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Now, the White House staff was told, that's censorship. And they realized, oh shit, it is. We shouldn't be doing that. So they left in everything, and after they did Cool, Considerate Men, Nixon was the first one to actually stand up and give it a standing ovation.
Was that for appearance's sake, though?
Yes.
Yeah,
Obviously it was. Yeah, because all the cast, because they said that, like, the guy who sang it, Paul Hecht, like, he really put everything into it. He was just really going at it, trying to be, like, sarcastic while he was singing it, and everyone else knew that.
As an F you to Nixon?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And it ended, and it was like this moment of silence, and then
Nixon got up.
get up and like, yeah, I'm going to try and be the cool one here.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Well, hey, I give him credit. He could have just sat there and been all Nixon.
But I will say, though, that William Daniels said it was hard to perform because they had the military band performing the music in another room, and apparently they were a bit too loud, so they kind of really had to fight to sing and make their voices heard. Yeah. Anyway, next song, Mama Looks Sharp. Okay, this is my least favorite song, and it's the one I skip because it's so damn depressing, but it's important. It's about a Continental Army soldier dying in a field and praying for his mom to find him before he dies. And they say musicals are too damn happy all the time with everyone singing and dancing. Yet this song, again, is important because it shows how the war affected the people fighting in it, as Adam said in the miniseries, An Army of Plain Country Boys. And it's also the first time we get to hear the character of the messenger boy tell his story, so shout out to Sherman Edwards for making him a well-rounded character and not just a guy who walks on and off the stage every so often. I also think I like the key of this version better in the stage show because it makes it hot, because by making it higher, it makes it sound like this guy is going to burst into tears at any moment. But I was listening to the film yesterday and I thought to myself, I think they recorded part of this live, because when you hear the guy singing Hey Hey, at one point he says mama and it sounds really gravelly and raw, nothing like you would hear recorded in the studio. So maybe they decided to record live for that one moment, and it works. And once again, considering this was in 1968, this is Sherman Edwards' Vietnam song. And the yearning for your mother is more powerful in a Vietnam context because those guys were on a different continent fighting in strange jungles where they didn't know the land, and they were the furthest they'd ever been from home in their lives. So they probably wanted to be with their family on their deathbed way, way more.
Yeah, it's definitely a sad song. And I actually looked up the lyrics in my book because... You know, there's that part where McNair and the other kid, they come in and they're singing. And I've always had trouble following the words.
Oh,
like it's
close
always
your eyes, my Bill.
Yeah, so I looked it up and I realized, okay, yeah, she does find them.
Yeah, she does.
Takes a little while, but she does, which is good.
That
At least there's some closure. And and yeah, you're definitely getting like the everyday person's point of view of like, yeah, this sucks. Two of my best friends just got killed, and I saw it happen.
And one of their moms had to go the whole night looking for them.
Yeah. And I was going to say, if you want an everyday picture of what life was like during the American Revolution, there was a book called Diary of... I think it's called Diary of a Revolutionary Soldier. It was originally called Yankee Doodle Dandy, and the guy's last name is Martin. And I cannot remember his first name. I used to have the book. I read it. It was interesting. It was grueling, and you realize, wow, these guys really went through hell. No food, no shoes, no nothing.
Yeah, they used to boil the leather in their shoes just so they could have something to eat.
And another good book, even though it's fiction, is Drums Along the Mohawk, where you get everyday life up in the Mohawk Valley in New York. And yeah, it's just...
I mean, the only other glimpse of the seriousness of the revolution you get to is every time that George Washington's letters are read out loud. But even then, for the most part, they're played for laughs, as the Scottish man says, you know, that man would depress a hyena. And, you know, it's also mostly just to show, oh my God, like especially when he writes from New Brunswick and says that every able-bodied whore has come to hang out with the soldiers, and suddenly there's an epidemic of the French disease. But even then, it doesn't get serious until, what was it? The British invaded New York.
Yeah.
And he says, "Dear God, what brave men I shall lose," and Mr. Morris gets all choked up.
Well, it's because they burned his house down.
Yeah. No. Who's the guy who reads? Who reads?
Oh, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, Mr. Thompson gets all choked up.
Yeah.
While he's reading it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was,
what was I gonna say? I can't remember.
Do you want to go on in the way to it?
I wish I could.
It's okay.
Yeah, something about those. Well, yeah, all the Washington letters were true.
Yeah.
Those are pretty much verbatim, except when the rhyming one comes up in "Is anybody there?"
Yeah, we'll talk
Yeah,
about that. I
not
wish.
so much. But yeah, I mean, these guys just went through unimaginable stuff. I mean, when we
Yeah.
went to Valley Forge,
Yeah. When I went to Philadelphia in the eighth
and
grade.
they're telling us about all the stuff that happened, you wonder, oh my God, it's amazing that we won.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, it's a monumental achievement.
And the sad thing is, soldiers still get treated like shit today.
Mm.
All right, next song, "The Egg." I think this is another track where they could have kept the dialogue instead of cutting it. That way we could have the fun banter with Jefferson, Adams, and Franklin squabbling over the national bird, the eagle, the dove, or the turkey, which Franklin really did want because he called the eagle quote-unquote lousy. This song is fun and lighthearted, saying we hope this works and something great comes out of it. I love how Jefferson gets the lyric of "I wish I felt that way," saying "I wish I felt like they were going to like what I wrote," because let me tell you, the anxiety of editing is real. Like, Mom and I get heart palpitations every time they cut stuff in the movie. And Franklin is so cocky as per usual by calling himself a sage while church bell tolls behind him. A farmer, a lawyer, and a sage. Bong.
A little gouty in the leg.
Yeah. But even though Franklin says he can put it better, the only one who really can is Howard Da Silva, since he originated the role.
Yeah. Yeah, so whilst waiting for the declaration to be read, John, Ben, and Tom are trying to figure out what the national bird's going to be once this egg of a new nation is hatched. And if Franklin had his way, we'd be eating eagle on Thanksgiving and protecting the turkey from extinction.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he does say something about, symbol of sustenance for our forefathers.
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson wants it to be a dove, the hippie.
I think he was thinking of...
He was all Woodstock.
Yeah, but also we did have the olive branch letter that we sent to King George. It was our peace declaration. He basically said, "Nah, screw you guys."
Pooped all over it.
Yeah, pooped all over it.
Yep. But yeah, it is a fun song because we need a break from Mama Looks Sharp, and it's kind of like, setting us up for the next not fun song.
Yeah. Well, it's also setting us up for, it's like, in my opinion, this song is like, the three of them have tenderly cared for this egg, and then when they get inside, after
It gets
declaration's been
scrambled.
read, yeah, the egg gets scrambled. They basically break it open, crack it, and then they make it into a godforsaken omelet. All right, next song, "Molasses to Rum." Now, this is a song that makes everyone uncomfortable when they listen to it, which is what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to realize that, well, there's all this talk about freeing a nation. There were a whole lot of people that came to this country by force that were not free and wouldn't be freed for nearly a century at this point. You also realize in the context of this musical, Dickinson was the red herring. Don't get me wrong, Dickinson was a major thorn in Adams' side and was a significant opponent for independence, but the real threat who would put a kibosh on the whole thing was Rutledge and all the representatives from the southern states. The tone of the song also foreshadows all the events in the country that were to come before the Civil War, including the Three-Fifths Compromise, the Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850, Bleeding Kansas, Harper's Ferry, just to name a few of the stuff, and, the Dred Scott case, and probably even more incidents that we didn't learn about in public school. This song also illustrates another point. It wasn't just the southern states operating the slave trade. There were northern merchants and sailors who participated as well. It was a twisted dance. And that still carries over into today. Racism isn't just something that's prevalent in the deep states of the South. It's in the institutions of the North as well. And I can't imagine what the actor who performed this song thought as he had to do this every night. Like, Mom was telling us this story before. Her friend Chuck had to sing this once, and he said it was one of the most emotionally draining songs he's ever had to perform in his life. As for the music of this song, it has this strange, ominous arrangement. Like, Mom was counting it, and she thinks it might be in 6/8 arrangement. And the baritone voice singing it just rubs the god-awfulness in the audience's face. But it's not just the subject of the song that's upsetting. What's even more upsetting is how Rutledge loves the slave trade for the money it brings to the South on the backs of people he considers property, and that's really what makes me sick the most.
Now, the thing is, in reality, both people from the North and South agreed, yeah, this paragraph should be struck out because it wasn't the king's doing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like, no, slave trade, no, you can't pin that on the king. That has
was
nothing
our
to do.
thing. Yeah.
Nice try to get it in there, but this is something completely different.
Yeah, but it still kind of sucks.
It does.
It still really sucks.
Yeah.
It royally sucks.
Yeah. So John Cullum sings it in the movie. Now, he also did it on Broadway as he was the third person to play that role on stage, and he also played it the longest.
Oh, Oh, wow.
on stage.
Yeah.
And he is riveting
Yes.
in the movie. You cannot take your eyes off him, even though you probably want to.
You do.
Like, get up and leave the room.
But you need to feel uncomfortable.
You just
You need to
cannot.
feel it, yeah.
Now, for me, it's hard to believe that this was the same guy who played Howling Van Cor in Northern Exposure, because he was like a complete opposite. He was like this kind of like laid-back old guy who ran the bar up in Sicily, Alaska, and the thing in the show was like he ended up stealing this woman who was supposed to marry Howling's best friend, who was this retired astronaut. This girl named Shelley, who was like, there was a 50-year age difference between Howling and Shelley.
Wow.
And Howling's biggest fear was that he was going to outlive Shelley, because all the Van Cors lived to a really old age and they always outlived their wives, no matter how old they were.
Wow.
And he was always wondering, well, who's going to take care of her up here after I'm gone? Even though you thought, you're 50 years older guy, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still cannot believe that that's the same guy.
Just shows acting range.
Yep, and he's still alive too. He's in his 90s.
Hello.
He's done stuff recently. I checked, it was like IMDb or maybe even Wikipedia. I checked so many websites for these people.
Yeah.
Kind of blur together. But yeah, he was still doing stuff as recently as in the 2000s, doing like bit parts in TV shows here and there. He's still an active guy.
Good for him.
Now, Clifford David sings the version on the original cast album,
Yep.
and it just does not come close
To the movie, yeah.
to John Cullum's version.
But also in the movie, you can really see like the hatred that this guy has and like his sick, twisted delight, especially when he sings about the slave auction. And he just, oh God, it makes my skin crawl thinking about it.
I would have nominated the guy for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, Academy Award is
and
something.
yet, this is like yet another reason that the soundtrack needs to be on CD.
Yeah.
And while we're at it, like you said, well, the cast album doesn't have like these little intros leading up to the songs.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could do like, if they needed to expand the CD to 2 discs,
Yeah.
they probably could.
They do
like
that
you
with
said,
a lot
there's
of
like
musicals.
there's like stuff that like songs that are missing or parts of songs.
Yeah,
they could
tiny
definitely
reprises.
Yeah,
Those you can
yeah.
cut though, I think.
Yeah.
All right, next song. Is Anybody There? All right, this is John Adams' Second I Want song, which is kind of weird that he gets 2. But I think this song resonates with everybody on some level.
Do you think maybe it's like bookends? He gets one at the beginning and he gets one at the end?
I could see that. And everyone in their, and I think this song resonates with everybody on some level because everyone in their lives has had some sort of passion project, something that they've worked very hard for, and something they know is going to be good or do good for a whole hell of a lot of people. And then the naysayers come in saying, it'll never work, face facts, John, the vote's tomorrow. But you still keep going because you've come so far and you know how great it can be. And William Daniels knocks it out of the park in his performance with the raw vocal intensity and that little plea for help at the end. And while you can hear the vocal strain on his voice this time around, it just really suits the song. This is one where it doesn't have to be perfect and polished. It has to be full of passion and fire like those fireworks and cannons. And I'm so glad we have this version recorded. But there's one note I want to bring up. In every musical in Act 2, there's the 11 o'clock number, which is the number that really wakes people up in the musical. And I always struggle in this musical, is the 11 o'clock number Molasses to Rum? Or is it Is Anybody There?
Maybe it's Anybody There because they're about to wrap up
the show,
the events.
But I also think it would have been cool, one more other note to make that I just thought of, is that if they included the little sung part from Mr. Thompson.
Yeah,
because it's like, this is the only bit this guy gets to sing.
Yeah.
It's not recorded? That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus he gets to read the rhyming letter from George Washington, who must have been in a mood that day and thought, you know what, I'm going to make this one rhyme, see if they're paying attention.
Yeah, and I also like how, John Adams says, hey, Mr. Thompson, who do you stand with? Do you stand with Dickinson or with me? And he goes, I stand with the general. And that tells you everything you need to know about him in that one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and that reminds me of something I wanted to get back to, like when you were talking about before in Mama Looks Sharp about how you're getting the everyman perspective. Yeah, and it's like as much as like they're getting stuff done in Congress, they're still removed from what's going on in the day to day. Like that kid tells McNair, I'm going to join up. oh, you don't have to join up for anything. You're in Congress. You think any of these guys are going to go out there?
And then Dickinson does.
And he was the only one out of all those guys. And he didn't believe in the cause, but he was the only one who went out there and actually got down in the trenches and survived, and then came to represent Delaware.
Maybe he moved.
Yeah, he did. In the Constitution. Even though he was not well liked for that, because they're all saying, wait a minute, you used to live in Pennsylvania. Why are you living in Delaware now? So I can get voted in, basically. Okay, now, I've always had problems with Is Anybody There?
Really?
Because to me, it's like, this is like the most tuneless song on there.
Really? Wow.
There's nothing for me to like grab onto. It just seems like it's not catchy. I've never been a fan of it. And to me, William Daniels sounds off key. Maybe he's supposed to be. I don't know if that's intentional, because you were saying like there's some like cracking, and like maybe it's to show like he's just like so psyched about this future, if we can get it, like he sees the fireworks and the parade. Not this year, pal.
Yeah.
Well, okay, everyone was shooting off fireworks last night, and all I'm thinking is, I hope our house doesn't catch on fire. I hope our house doesn't catch on fire.
Well, in the movie, he's more polished with his performance, but I think either way, whether you're listening to the cast recording or you're watching the movie, it's just the way he acts it commands attention, because he is so passionate about this dream. And what clinches it at the end is, you see that despite all that passion, he still has a little moment of self-doubt, and he's like, oh God, does anybody see what I see? Just please say yes so that I know I'm not alone in this. Other than Abigail, just please let me know.
I do, Mr. Adams.
Dr. Hall.
Dr. Hall, I didn't see you there. The light.
Yep.
And then he do the Edmund Burke thing.
Yeah. A member of the British Parliament. I remember, like, when I took Intro to Political Thought, which is a political ideology class at Rick, we were talking about conservatism, and my Professor Wiener, he mentioned Edmund Burke and like some of his writings, and I was thinking in my head, hey, that's the guy Dr. Hall talked about! Wow! I didn't say that out loud, of course.
Oh, that would have been fun.
No, I didn't. But I also had that other moment where he was talking about Noblesse Oblige, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's the thing Mr. Banks sings about in Mary Poppins. He's like, he talks about how it's grand to be an Englishman in 1910 because King Edward's on the throne, it's the age of men. I'm the lord of my castle. And then he's like, I treat my subjects, servants, wife, all the same, noblesse oblige, which is the idea of the bigger taking care of the smaller. Anyway, all right, last song, finale. I love the music in this because there's equal parts triumph and doom. On one hand, there's a nation born, and there are bells of triumph. On the other, they have all signed their death warrants, hence the death knells. Adams himself said that there was a perception the war ended with, the Declaration of Independence, but we still had 5 more years to go at this point. Yorktown wasn't until 1781. And that final tableau of the Founding Fathers after signing the last signature is iconic. But here's how I'd end this show if I directed it. You have the final tableau, then a bell sounds, and all the lights go out, followed by a spotlight on John Adams. Another bell, and then a spotlight appears on Abigail at the other end of the stage. Another bell, they run toward each other, and the final bell, they finally embrace, and the stage goes black. And thus the curtain drops, ending on the musical.
No, I'm not going for that.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was nice.
Well, I thought you were going to say, spotlight on him, spotlight on her. They run towards each other, and right before they touch, it goes black.
Oh, that's better! That's better! Let's do that instead.
Thank you.
I like it. Very good. You could be a director.
And I'm a non-Broadway person. How about that? Okay, yeah. So, this music is played when everyone comes up to sign a declaration. And in the movie, the way that they position everyone is...
Cinema painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, to me, it's like you said, it's just, on one hand, it's triumph. On the other hand, it's doom. I mean, to me, it always sounds funereal.
Yeah. That's it.
Maybe they knew it was going to happen later, and much later, and much later, and much later. And I guess they were trying to go for monumental, like, yeah, we're going to be this new country, but it just kind of falls short.
It's so ominous.
Because it's like, yeah, stuff's going to go down that you have no idea about. But, like Franklin says to Adams at one point, what's history going to think? We were demigods? We're just men.
Yeah.
Trying to get a new country off the ground. I mean,
and
they
as
were
he
doing...
says, we're not going to hear about any of it.
Because we'll be dead.
Yeah.
The history books will clean it up.
Except they didn't, and you found out later how much of a freak Franklin really was.
Oh, he had to get his freak on. I mean, member of the Hellfire Club?
Ooh, Real? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you want to Google that.
And then when he goes to New Brunswick, he's like, why the hell should I? The whoring and the drinking automatically gets up.
Yep.
Yep. All right, final
I
note.
mean, and you get that thing in the John Adams miniseries where
Yes.
Abigail keeps saying, "Hey, how's the wife doing?" Oh, damn, I forgot I was married.
Kills the mood, yeah. And then Adams catches him in the bathtub with that lady, and they're playing chess.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
The
Yeah,
French
like,
woman.
oh,
Okay.
sorry, guy.
And Franklin's just sitting there like, oh, hey, John, what's up? All right, on that note, final notes and final thoughts. Overall, 1776 is a great stepping stone for learning about American history, because there's going to be some inaccuracies, but it does prompt people to, want to pick up a book and learn some more. It was the Hamilton of its time in terms of being a musical about the American Revolution. While I'm still bummed that we don't have a CD of the film, I'm glad the CD exists because at least we get to hear some of all the great performances with all the great music. And this musical was revived every year, again with a cabaret at 54 Pillow, and even a performance at Encores where they were in modern dress.
Did they do it yesterday?
I don't think so, because Broadway
Not even
shut
like
down.
a Zoom version?
No. If they did a Zoom version, that would be interesting. Maybe Seth Rudetsky will do something for his Stars in the House show.
I have no idea who that is.
Oh, Seth Rudetsky is kind of like if Broadway had a king or a mayor, it would probably be him. He's basically like he hosts a radio program on Sirius XM called Obsessed. Well, no, Obsessed is his show on Playboy, but basically he interviews all these Broadway stars. He is a Broadway pit performer, and he raises tons and tons of money for charity with Stars in the House, where he interviews all these actors, and they raise money for the Actors Fund or for other causes such as the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and everybody just loves Seth Rudetsky on Broadway. He does a lot of playing for Broadway performers when they do cabaret shows, and he also hosts these Broadway cruises that you do where, he does interviews again with Broadway performers and also plays for them when they do cabaret shows on the high seas. Anyway, so hopefully the gender bent revival will still occur because Broadway is closed until January of 2021, so hopefully they'll still have enough money to do it. And if that production gets a cast recording, you know damn well we're probably going to do an episode on it. So give this a listen and enjoy it next year at your 4th of July barbecue.
All in all, a decent cast album,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm more used to the movie soundtrack.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, did you know that when the movie came out, and I need some information on this,
Okay.
or actually your opinion,
Okay.
the movie got panned. Yeah, like the reviews that I found online, like Roger Ebert just roasted it.
Why?
Even though he said the only two really good performances were William Daniels and Donald Madden, who played Dickinson.
Really?
Yeah, and I
Howard
thought,
Silva.
he's seeing stuff that I'm not seeing. I didn't get.
Huh.
And it didn't do well at the box office either.
Oh, shoot.
And this tends to happen to a lot of Broadway musicals turned into movies.
Oh.
Like, why is that anyway?
Okay.
Because you've got, like, the producers flopped, Cats just, like, coughed up a hairball a couple of months ago.
Okay.
What's that one? A Chorus Line.
Oh, God. Oh, poor Terrence Mann. Okay.
Your favorite, Phantom of the Opera. They just all, like, poop the bed when they
Okay.
get turned into movies. Why is that?
All right, so if you want a starting point for the death of the Hollywood movie musical, you could trace that back to the Hello, Dolly film with Barbra Streisand and Walter Matthau, because that movie had the hugest budget ever, and it bombed, even though it was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. And the reason why it bombed is 1, because it cut so many songs, and 2, it doesn't have the same heart as the original, and 3, Gene Kelly didn't care when he directed it. He was like, even though he was the director, he was like, yeah, I was there. But when that movie bombed, because it was like supposed to be such a hit, because Hello, Dolly was the longest running musical on Broadway no, not the longest running. It had won the most Tony Awards for any musical up until the producers beat it. And, they were expecting such great things for this movie. And when it bombed, that was when Hollywood said, okay, we're not going to do movie musicals anymore. So with the producers, the reason that flopped is because Susan Stroman did not know how to direct actors when it came to movies. Because when you're on stage, all of your movements have to be projected to the last person who's sitting all the way in the back row. Mm-hmm. So everything has to be big and grand and bold. But when I took my acting for the camera class, the acting style is different because you have this camera that's so close to your face and picks up every tiny detail. So if your movements are exaggerated, your performance it comes off as phony instead of being natural. And the problem was Susan Stroman didn't tell anybody to tone it down, so it looked overperformed and overhyped. Now you have Cats, and Cats,
I thought that would have been a no-brainer.
No, well, here's the thing. Even though it's the longest running musical on, it was the longest running musical in Broadway history until Phantom took it over. Tom Hooper does not know how to direct movie musicals. Again, he directed the Les Mis movie, which, again, check out Ethan's from Sideways' video on that. But the thing is, I think he took some of the stuff that was symbolism too literally. Like, for example, Cats the musical is set in a junkyard, right? So when they talk about stuff from the outside world, it's like they get to really have fun with it by making like pieces of junkyard scrap represent like humans or dogs or monsters, and it's really cool settings. But it's really cool use of scenic design and props. But the problem was Tom Hooper took everything. It was too over the top. It was like eating too much dessert. Like there's one point where Rebel Wilson unzips herself from her cat suit and wears a bikini, and then the mice eat these little cockroaches that are actual human beings that are alive. And then what infuriates me about Cats is that in the 1990s there was a project to make it animated, which I think would have really worked well. I mean, there's a whole video Howard Ashman does where it talks about how animation really lends itself really well to the musical theater art form. Because, again, when the characters' emotions are so built up that they can't talk anymore, they have to sing. And the animation, you can really fly with some of the stuff that the music gives you. Like, that's why Prince of Egypt really works as a movie, because Stephen Schwartz got to write these lyrics in the opening number for Deliver Us, the sweat on my brow, the sting of my whip, and then the animators were really able to take off and fly with it. And then what were some of the other movies you talked about? Oh, Joel Schumacher and Phantom of the Opera. Again, hire real singers. Like someone made a meme.
Oh, Schumacher. Well, say no more. Yeah. That's why it stunk.
Rest in peace, yeah. But again,
no, don't.
Someone made a meme where it was all the hard-trained actors who played the Phantom for years on Broadway watching Gerard Butler yell his lines, and it's this guy who's like got his hands on his hips going like, come on, son, come on. But Lindsay Ellis, again, made an awesome video essay about why the Phantom of the Opera movie is so bad. And she argues in her Cats movie that if the movie musical is dead and Cats is what finally killed it, then good. Because, here's where Hamilton ties into this. Hamilton recently, as we all know, came to Disney Plus, and it was the pro shot of the stage musical. And a pro shot is when a camera crew comes in and they film the stage show and upload it for DVD. You see this a lot with PBS Great Performances. But I think that after Hamilton being on Disney Plus and with that being wildly successful, companies are going to realize, oh yeah, we don't have to spend all this money on a movie. We can just film the stage version and it'll be a bit cheaper, and we can upload it for everyone to see. So now you don't have to spend all this money or your life savings going to see a musical on Broadway. You can watch the entire Broadway experience from the comfort of your own home. And that's what I'm hoping the next stage of the filmed musical is going to be.
Plus, that probably saves a lot of people money.
It does. It really does. But the other good thing about that is that Leslie Odom Jr., who played Aaron Burr on Broadway, he made sure that all the actors who were in Hamilton got paid and will continue to get paid after that was uploaded to Disney+. Because as he said, when he was working on TV with CSI Miami, he would still get a paycheck after he did his work because the show would re-air its episodes. Mm-hmm. So he was able to pay his rent, his groceries, and utilities. But in Broadway, even if you are in the original cast, when you leave the show, you don't get any other payments for all the work that you did, even though you were probably in a cast recording or you won a Tony for it.
So it's a one and done.
It's a one and done deal. So hopefully this will bring some changes to the theater industry for the better.
Okay, now why did Chorus Line suck?
Chorus Line, that was really weird because I feel so bad for Terrence Mann, who is an accomplished Broadway performer and he played the choreographer. I think it's because they really, what they could have done is when the dancers are telling all their stories, they could have incorporated some stuff from like some flashbacks or flash forwards of their childhood. And I also think, Michael Douglas as Zach, he didn't do the best performance that he could do. They just basically kept it too confined. And also the number What I Did for Love is supposed to be sung by all the dancers, but it's sung by Cassie instead. It's just it didn't work. It was too confined when it should have really been down to earth, but it was just too stationary and it just didn't work.
But then you've got some where they kind of know what they're doing, like Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago did really well.
Now, why did that do well?
I think it did really well because Rob Marshall has experience in the theater world. He was a choreographer before he came to direct movies. But he's also one of the rare exceptions where it's like someone from the theater world was able to do a good job directing movies. he was able to, have, again, he was able to switch back and forth between having a vaudeville show and having, depicting the courtroom drama. Like, there's one excellent scene where Richard Gere has to come up with something on the spot in order to defend Roxy Hart. So they cut between him defending her in court and Richard Gere dancing this elaborate tap dance number, faster, 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 faster. And then when it's done, it's just this triumph. And that was one of the biggest reasons why, when that came out, it got all the Academy Awards, where people thought, finally, the movie musical is back and Rob Marshall's going to save it. And then cut to 9 and Into the Woods, and it was like, Rob, just stick with Kander and Ebb's stuff and the dance stuff, okay?
Oh, so he did all the ones that just kind of went...
Yeah, 9 was when they had, what's that guy's name? He played Lincoln in Lincoln.
Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis was singing. It was
Oh.
weird. Yeah. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to my musical theater rant. I hope
I had to let my daughter go on her Broadway nerd
soapbox. Yeah, I hope I got some stuff right. If I didn't get some stuff right, feel free to correct me in the comments.
And I want to say, for the 80 millionth time, I hope
Yes.
the soundtrack comes out on CD.
And if our episode plays any part in that at all, then
My job here is done.
our job here is done. All right, thank you as always for listening to another episode of My Dad Listens to This. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you didn't like it, too bad. We're going to have another episode out in a couple of weeks. If you have any specific thoughts you want to let us know, leave a comment. If you want to know when more videos come out, please hit the subscribe button or tap the bell if you want to be notified right away. If you want to get the episodes on Facebook, I post the episodes on Facebook. If you want to get the episodes on Twitter, I post them on Twitter. If you want to get the episodes on Instagram, I always post what episodes we're doing each week, and I leave my channel link in the bio. If you follow My Dad Listens to This on Tumblr, I post the episodes there too. And if you're friends with my dad and want to get the episodes through him, email my dad and he'll email the episodes to you. And as always, thank you again for listening to another episode of My Dad Listens to This. We'll be back with another album to nitpick and gripe about. Anything you want to say, Dad?
Yeah, be careful there with the indoor fireworks, kids.
Yeah. Oh,
Happy
God.
4th of July weekend.
Happy 4th of July weekend. Make it stop. Hey, whoever's firing those fireworks, sit down, dude. Sit down, man. For God's sake, man, sit down. Bye.